Minasan konnichiwa, Dimelo familia. Welcome back to another episode of Hella Headroom. So today we're gonna switch it up just a little bit. I hope that's all right with y'all. I was thinking it'd be dope to take a deep dive into the context and the history and the backstory behind a lot of these projects because I think that's also very important in building and establishing the lore around an album or a project or a song or a time period in an artist's career. Although it's not my very first project that I ever put out, I feel like Gringo is kind of the first step for a lot of people, and even for myself, it felt like that first step into really doing this seriously and really putting a ton of effort and focus and intention over a long period of time into building a body of work. And I gotta start by saying none of that would be possible without James Stryker, my boy James. The wizard, the guru, he is the man for real in so many ways. And if you know for sure. And if you don't know, you better find out. So if you don't mind, let's hop in the DeLorean right quick and go back to 2013. I was in Champaign and I had been trying to find a pro studio to record in. And there was one in particular that kind of had a big name that everybody talked about. That studio was called Pogo Studio. I always had my setup at the crib. I always had my mic and my interface and all that stuff. So I could record myself. So it wasn't like I had a crazy sense of urgency, but it was something that I felt like would help me take my music to another level creatively and sonically. I had no idea to what extent that would be true. So after a few months of casually researching and trying to figure out who to get in contact with in order to book a session at Pogo, I ended up getting in touch with the owner, Mark Rubel. Rest in peace to Mark. We connected over email, and he basically said, I'm not there. I'm going to Nashville to work at Blackbird Studios for a little bit, but I'll put you in contact with my lead engineer, James. I hit James up. We played phone tag for a little bit. This was before everybody was on Instagram and DMing and, in contact daily. And eventually we ended up doing a session at Ryan from Elsinore's studio, a super dope studio in this barn that he converted into a legit studio. It's super nice, super comfortable. It's blue. It's like the shade of blue that if you know me, I'm really into. But anyway, so we did the session there, and from what I remember, we hit it off immediately. I came in with this big idea for this project that I wanted to make, and I had a lot of influences and things that I was listening to at the time, and I started telling him about all that and talking to James about Tame Impala and Lauryn Hill and Curtis Mayfield and some of these more musical artists and more organic styles of music, and hearing him just be like, yeah, we could do that. We can record guitars, we can record keys, we can record drums, we can do whatever you want. That just kind of blew the whole world open for me musically. It just felt like the possibilities were really endless at that moment. That was really key to kicking that off and setting that spark, because up to that point I had been working on songs for quite a while. And actually, it might have even been that first session, but it was definitely the second session at Earth Analog out in Tolono. Dope studio that REO Speedwagon used to use, with an apartment up top, classic old school wood panel, big studio, big performance room, big analog board, just classic studio stuff. I love that place. But I definitely remember at that place we recorded a song called Bop, which is definitely never coming out at this point. But anyway, so not only is James opening my mind to all these different musical possibilities in terms of instrumentation and recording techniques, but now we're working in these dope studios and it feels official and it feels big. And any artist knows what I'm talking about, like those first few experiences in those big official studios. I had experiences in big studios before, but these were different. We were really digging in. We were spending a lot of time. And just to like touch back on the influences and provide some context for that a little bit, I had been basically going to class. I would go hoop at the Arc for a little bit, and then I would come home and I would record. I wasn't even really writing a lot of stuff. I was just recording stuff. I was trying to figure out my voice. I was doing some covers here and there. I would do some freestyles here and there. There were a bunch of songs where I would try to sing like Curtis Mayfield. And so I was finding my voice at that time. I was playing with harmonies. I was just learning a lot about recording, and that was a real cool phase. That was a phase where I felt real free, and there was a lot of experimentation going on, and a lot of discovery. But anyway, going back to Gringo, me and James got to work, and I had all these songs, and then we started recording at his house more, and I just kind of started telling him about the vision for the album, and he was into it. Little by little, piece by piece, we started putting this thing together. I would send him songs. Even after I left Champaign, I went back to Chicago, and I was in the basement at Antonio's spot, and yeah, I was just working on stuff every day. I was working at Comcast at the time. That's what it was called at the time, Comcast Sportsnet. And a lot of times I would just work on music all the way through the night. And I remember one of those nights knocking out maybe the first song that I did for Gringo. It was over this real simple beat that I made in Logic. I don't think it took me a whole lot of time. And yeah, I had the beat for a little bit, but just this one night, for some reason, I sat down in front of the computer, I pulled up that beat, and the first thing that came to mind was, no news is bad news. AF, I'm finna get it tattooed. I learned a lot sitting in the back of them classrooms. Shout out them white girls giving ass to black dudes. Look. So if you know, you know. That one eventually became Regardless. And I feel like that one's kind of a OG classic. I ended up performing Regardless in, I want to say, 2015. There was an open mic at Iridium, Milwaukee. Shout out Serenity. Shout out Iridium. I remember rolling up there with Sammy and Daniel, and I think Benny might have even been with us, the mysterious Benny. I think he might have even made an appearance that night. And I remember doing that song. Obviously, I was nervous. That was the first time I was performing that song. I wasn't performing a whole lot at that time. I had done shows, but I hadn't been consistently at it at that point. But I remember the reaction that I got from that song. And for that to not be a hype song, for it just to be a super stripped back song where I'm just rapping. I'm rapping for like 3.5 minutes, something like that. And the hook doesn't come until the end. I remember seeing everybody's reaction and everybody just kind of like focusing and like everybody nodding their heads in unison. And like, that was a dope feeling, man. And it just felt like, okay, oh man, maybe I might got one, you know? And then of course we had to shoot the video for Regardless. We did half of that at Camera Ambassador, shout out Camera Ambassador, and half of that by my spot at the time in Uptown. You know, I said, AF, I'm about to get it tattooed, so I had to do it. And I did it for the video, got the tattoos, so we shot a little bit in the tattoo parlor and then shot like around my house. And then another day, on a separate day, we shot at Camera Ambassador. And I remember Adam, Master Wayne, he busted out the Volcano vape, and yeah, it all went downhill from there. And you can still see it in the footage, and that may be why that video never came out. But it was a great experience, and I think looking back on it, energy played such a huge role. All these little moments that actually felt quite big at the time that stacked together to create the snowball that became Gringo, starting with meeting James back in 2013 and him unlocking all the doors and bestowing his Jedi Master wisdom upon me and being there step by step to help me craft this project, to the overnight sessions in the basement at Antonio's crib where I'm knocking out songs like Regardless. And the next morning I wake up and I'm driving to work. I'm like, damn, this is hard. To getting on stage and performing Regardless and going first at the open mic and getting a great response, to, you know, shooting the video, getting a tattoo. I think it all just started to come together and feel more and more intentional as time went on, and that positive energy and that positive momentum, it can't be overstated. And I'm gonna wrap this one up like this. My name is Bardo San. My feet are currently set firmly in Santurce, Puerto Rico. I would say my ears are on the moon right now because I've been listening to Kid Cudi the last few days. He's always super inspiring to me. His come up, his music, his freedom of expression, his authenticity to himself and his brand. So shout out Cudi, man. My eyes are definitely in Melbourne, Australia. I've been watching the Australian Open religiously the past couple weeks, and my mind right now is on Italy, Genoa to be exact, or Genova, however you want to pronounce it. Yeah, my mind's been on there for a while. I've been wanting to take a trip out there for a while, so hopefully I can make it happen soon. But that's all I got for this episode of Hella Headroom. Thank you for joining me once again. We will be back very, very soon. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you would be so kind. I appreciate you so much if you made it to the end of this video. And I will catch y'all in the next one. And I'm out.